as we start to work with our little tail whip animation, I want to start figuring out where the engine of the movement really resides. And that's kind of job number one for us as animators. We've got to figure out what is generating the movement and how the rest of the form is going to respond to that energy that's been created from that generation. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. This is the unanimated version of this project file. So I need to go ahead and start establishing all the keyframes. And I think I want to have the engine start down here. Since the engine of the movement is going to be the base of the tail, I need to be very mindful that I'm not accidentally changing the location of this engine across the entire animation itself. I want this to look like a hinge, and then everything is rotating and flowing and following that hinge as it goes throughout the animation itself. I'm going to do all of this work with curve editing mode on this simple little stroke. It's a great, easy way for us to organically change the form of this. What we don't want to do is something like this. I'm going to jump into edit mode here real fast. We don't want to work with all the individual dots. In addition, we also probably want to avoid the sculpting tools at time in this process as well. The curve editing tools, especially on organic shapes like this, do a wonderful job of creating a nice consistent form going across the entirety of our surface. So let's jump back into strokes, our stroke selection state, and I'm going to turn on curve editing. And I think I'm just going to have 2 points, which is absolutely perfect for what we want to use and what we want to accomplish in this moment. Because what we can do, let's go into with curve editing on. Now I can return to my vertex selection state. Grab the vert that represents the handle that I want to work on, this guy right there. Yeah, and just simply grabbing it is all that I really need to do. Excuse me. Let me zoom out some so I can see what I'm doing. Yeah, because now I can just grab it and have a wonderful change in location. I can really start crafting some beautiful curves in here, which I can use to my advantage to really kind of craft this wonderful form. I'm not going to touch the bottom one, the bottom handle, this guy way down over here, and I'm definitely not going to touch the root of my entire chain. So I got to be a little bit careful of how I want to do all this. Okay, I'm going to go back in time a couple steps. This is the first pose. I'm going to start to linearly add a whole series of keyframe drawings throughout my timeline. So let's just do every 5 frames or so. And then I'll go back in and figure out the appropriate spacing that I want just to communicate the movement that I'm after. Okay, so I know that I'm gonna try and make this a loopable animation. So I think what I'm going to do here is that what I'm going to do is that before I go any further, I'm going to arbitrarily duplicate the keyframe on frame 1. Since I want this to be a loopable animation, I want the first frame and the last frame to be identical to each other. We're not going to render that last frame, but we need to have that last frame in our sequence so that we can create frame 54. So I'm going to put, or frame 55, excuse me, I misspoke. So I'm going to duplicate my first frame, and I'm going to put it on frame 56. That way, I have a good target of where frame 55 needs to be. Okay. So the first frame and the last frame already done. We don't want to render that duplicate frame because then it's going to pause for 2/24ths of a second, which I don't want to see. I want it to just seamlessly loop over and over and over again. Okay, now the challenge here is that since we want the first frame and the last frame to be identical, if we were to change the first drawing, we got to make sure that we overwrite that frame on frame 56. Okay. All right, so I have some big decisions here on how I'm going to do this. I think what I'm going to do is establish the basic structure of some of these keyframes pretty early on. I want to establish maybe the start and stop of one entire whip. So I want it to go from left to the right and then back to its starting location. So where is that rightmost pose? Well, let's kind of just figure this out here real fast. I think I'll put it on, I don't know, frame 30 for the time being. And let's go in and start figuring this out. Now, what I'm looking for here, and let's turn our onion skinning on. That way I can start to see what that second frame is going to look like. Now, as I do this, I'm not looking at the total shape. I'm just looking at this angle here at the base and trying to make it work on this one as well. You certainly could go in with multi-frame editing. Let's turn that on and start to tweak the angle a little bit, just so it's similar. It doesn't have to be identical, and it probably shouldn't be identical. Just something similar. This is an organic movement. We don't want things to look too, kind of uniform across the entire thing. But we do want to kind of have it generally be the same. Somewhere right around there looks pretty good. Yeah, let's turn multi-frame editing off and take a look at it. Now, again, I'm just looking at the base here. I'm not looking at the rest of the tail. Just trying to establish where that target's going to be. And then it's going to flow back to its original location at the end. There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. That's a good place to begin. All right. Now comes the fun part. Let's bisect this entire section of our timeline. Now, if you think about it, this keyframe here is the first drawing. And this keyframe here represents the drawing where the tail is on the right side of our screen. So I'm going to bisect the timeline right about frame 15 to start establishing a look and feel of what it looks like in the middle of its movement. Let's go to frame 15. We'll do it real fast. And this is where it gets to be a tremendous amount of fun because now we get to start playing around with some shapes. Okay. And I think what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to start to do something like this. A nice flow. As I even plan this middle frame, I want to be mindful that this part here should be following the engine. Everything is following the engine. The wave principle allows us to, or encourages us to create some very fluid movements. We're only going to work with a couple frames here because this structure can then be kind of extrapolated on top of to create some additional levels of detail. Okay, if this is what the animation is going to look like in the middle of a movement, and let's figure out the details of what it's going to look like at the end of the movement. Now, I know what I want it to follow, right? So at this frame here, the base, the engine has stopped moving to the right, and it's beginning to move to the left. The wave principle kind of tells us that this over here needs to be in a much different location. So I think I'm going to put it over here like this. Let's change its form a little bit. Yeah. Now, I don't want to go too far away from its mass. I'm looking here, just trying to make sure that it's roughly in the same spot. If I'm off ever so slightly, that's not the end of the world. Let's look at it now. There's that drawing. Then it goes here. Then it goes there. Yeah, I'm digging that. That's starting to work. I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's figure out that middle frame between frame 30 and frame 56. Somewhere right around there. And I'm just visually looking just to kind of see if I'm in the middle here or so in my timeline. And I'm close enough. This is good enough for me. So we always start with the motor. If this is the middle between the beginning of the return whip, if you will, let's figure out where the motor is going to be. And I'm just going to move this keyframe. Maybe something right around in there. Yeah, and I'm happy with that. Because I can see the onion skin drawing over there. It's a pretty good pose at the motor, at the base. Now this should be flowing behind it. So it should be maybe like this. Let's change its location a little bit. Yeah, something like that. I may have gone a little too far. And this is the cool thing about onion skinning is that we can very quickly start to decode all this and figure out how all this is going to work. Let's play the animation as is. I'm going to go out of edit mode into object mode here real fast. And I'm just trying to see if this is working. Because if it's not working at this stage, it's never going to work. We want to make sure that these initial storytelling poses do as good of a job as we possibly can in describing the movement before we go any forward. Yeah, and I'm digging this. This is a good place to begin. With these keyframes in tow here, we've defined the overall DNA of the movement. We've established what it's going to look like as it's flowing back. Let's begin to add an additional layer of detail in here to begin to really describe the nuance of this motor, of this wave as it goes throughout the engine. And I think I'm just going to focus in on maybe these first two keyframes. All right. So if the wave starts here, let's bisect the timeline one more time. Okay. I like to kind of take two keyframes and split the timeline and add another one in there, just to begin to establish what it could look like in the middle between what we see here and the onion skin drawing over here. Okay, let's start the process. I'm going to select it, go into edit mode. I definitely know I want the base to be somewhere right around in there. Okay. Now I have to decide when I want the tip to start moving. Now it should probably move early on in the process here. The base is going to move, and then the tip is going to move. Yeah, let's see. I think on this frame, I am going to start to move the tip just a little bit, just to suggest that there is some movement in here, that the tip is being influenced by, yeah, I like that. The tip is being influenced by the movement of the motor, just not intensely, not at an extreme rate. I'm also looking at the possibility, yeah, I like that too. The possibility of having it be, this is a weighted end, so it's not going to move in too much. Yes, that's looking better. It's not moving too much until the base of the tail really goes much more dramatically over there to the right. So if you look at my onion skinning here, I can already see that this is starting to work a little bit better. We're getting the beginning of a nice little S curve in here, which I think is really neat. I could amplify that, maybe even more. Yeah, I like that. I think I'm going to go to this drawing here, and I'm going to change the location of the tip. Because as I look at all of these onion skins, yeah, I may have gone a little too far. That location is wildly different. Let's go into our onion skinning properties, and on keyframes before, let's put that to 2. That way I'm seeing this drawing and this drawing simultaneously. Yeah, and I think I'm just going to move it back a little bit. I'm going to turn on multi-frame editing as well. Kind of expedite this process just a little bit. Yeah, something like that. Let's turn multi-frame editing off and play the animation. Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. I like that. These onion skins do a really, really fantastic job in helping us describe and define how this movement is going to look. So over here on frame 30, this is the conclusion of the whip. Now it's going to go back in the other direction after frame 30. So how's it going to look between frame 15 and 30? What's the movement look like in here? Because the motor of the engine is starting to go to the right. But we want to make sure that this tip here is flowing behind that movement. Let's bisect our timeline one more time and add a new drawing into the mix here. Of course, we're always going to start our work with the motor itself. Let's grab it, move it down a little bit. We could also kind of begin to experiment around with the spacing of the drawings to suggest that it's beginning to slow down a little bit. So it doesn't always have to be an even kind of distribution of the line and the form. We can experiment around with it. I think I'm also going to shallow out and shorten that curve a little bit. Because at this point, we still want the tip to be flowing behind the motor. Yeah, let's play it now. We always play it. Animation is an art form of movement. We shouldn't really evaluate the work that we've done until we started to play it. Because only when we see our animation in front of us do we really super understand it. Yeah, I'm liking that. There's some good things in here. I can tell that I already want to make the weight of this a little bit different. As I played the animation, my little spidey sense was tingling a little bit. I think all of us animators have a spidey sense, something in our brain that's saying, look at this a little bit more carefully. There's something not quite right here. And my spidey sense was tingling on that second drawing right there. Yeah, let's go back and fix this second drawing. I'm going to make the illusion here a little bit more intense. I want to have this curve be much more significant. Yeah, something like that. And I might even grab this top one. Let's just play around with it. Let's experiment. I love that we have the ability to very quickly experiment with different poses. We don't have to redraw everything. Yeah, I'm liking it. There's some good things in here. I may have gone a little too extreme. Let's go back into edit mode. I'm going to move the tip only. And we'll move the base. That way the tip doesn't move all that much until we get to this drawing. Then the tip is going to start to move. That's really good. Yes, there it is. Nailed it. That really accentuates and amplifies the weight of all of this. It gives us a wonderful sense of fluidity that the bottom part of the blade of grass or the tail is moving before the tip moves. But then it's deforming in the middle to give us this really great S-curve right there. So the tip really doesn't move all that much on this drawing. Now, if I was to go in and maybe just move it a little bit, how's that going to look and feel? Let's see. Yeah, I'm digging that. That's a cool look. That's a cool look. So this is the wave principle in action. I'm not trying to draw every single frame. The process of animating requires us to go through and provide some structure first. This pose-to-pose style of animation really allows us to evaluate each pose in relation to the other pose. If we have zillion keyframes in here, we're not going to really understand what changes can be made to amplify the effect that we're after, because we physically have a drawing on every single frame of our animation, and one affecting one drawing is really not going to allow us to understand the big impacts of that effect on our total understanding of the movement. So these structured keyframes are super important for us because they allow us to very quickly go in and produce a framework that we can time out and create all of our in-betweens with.